Let's establish something. I think that cell phones are rude. And I don't think that cell phones themselves necessarily are rude, I guess I should say, but I think that someone being able to inject themselves forcefully into your life and make you stop what you're doing and acknowledge them is rude. I felt that way about landline telephones as well. For those of us that are old enough to remember what a landline is, that's sad. Very, very, very sad. The fact that you want to get in touch with somebody, you'd like to speak with them, you're making a request to speak with them, but if they don't want to talk with you, they've either just got to wait and wait and wait until you give up and aren't letting their phone ring anymore, or let it go to an answering machine, which is also obnoxious because they never invented a classy answering machine. Cell phones are much the same way, in my opinion, except that now, instead of just having a phone tethered to your wall that you can walk away from, you've got something in your pocket that you can't really walk away from unless you choose to put it down. And most people don't. So it could be argued that we're doing this to ourselves. But in terms of establishing communications, it's kind of a necessary evil at this point. Or is it? There are different ways of getting a hold of people digitally now, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a phone call. Text messages, GCFs, things like that are changing the way that you reach out and let somebody know that you'd like to talk with them. And I think wearables are the next step in that process. Being able to politely, discreetly notify you that somebody is trying to get a hold of you or pass information to you without otherwise interrupting your day is a fantastic thing, and that's why we're going to talk about wearables for a minute. First, just a real quick catch-up. What exactly is a wearable for those of you who haven't been running around in the tech community for as long or as vigorously as the rest of us have? A wearable is a device that obviously you wear on your person that is designed to be a lightweight system to serve you notifications about incoming data on your mobile device, incoming data, notifications, calendar pop-ups, alarms, things like that. It is designed to serve you that data in a lightweight, easy to digest fashion, so that you can just momentarily glance away and get whatever data that you need and go back to doing what you're doing, rather than having to pull your phone out of your pocket, unlock it, open the application, sift through all the data, and put your phone back. And the function that wearables provide, I absolutely love, because especially in conversations with people, if you get a text message, there's the loud message first and foremost, and while I love my own text messaging prompts, I acknowledge that they're probably annoying as hell to everybody else. So you've got to stop what you're doing, pull your phone out of your pocket, check your text message. You may or may not respond to your text message at that point, and then put your phone away. Now, the act of doing that has just told the person that you're interacting with that the conversation that you were having wasn't as important as whatever random thing just happened in your pocket. Now, that's rude. I happen to think that's rude. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. But yeah, I think that's horribly rude, and I think that's why wearables are so fantastic. The watches in particular, although I don't have any problems with Google Glass, because you can just come and tilt your wrist a little bit and glance down at it, much like you glance at the time, and then back up at somebody without having to worry about completely disassociating yourself with the conversation that you're having or with whatever you're doing. I think they're absolutely fantastic. Because of my definition of wearable, we're automatically going to disqualify the Samsung Gear S from this conversation, because it's not just a wearable, it's a phone that you wear on your wrist. And while I absolutely love that device, I really, really do, it's not just a simple wearable. That's not what it was designed to be. So having said all that, now let's talk about this wearable right here. This is the Pebble Time, which I did an unboxing of earlier this week, and I've had about 5 days to live with it, and I am ready to tell you whether or not it's a better mousetrap. It's more like a medium version. If you want a wearable, and if you own an iPhone, and if you don't want an Apple Watch, which is completely understandable, or if you switch between Apple and Android devices a lot, or if battery life and durability are make or break must-have features, yeah, you should absolutely get one of these devices. If you're still here, let's talk about some of those things I just said. One of the selling points of the Pebble, both the original Pebble and the Pebble Time, and the Steel variants, was that they would run on both Android and iOS devices. That is a coup, because while Android Wear might be great, and while the Apple Watch might be great, I honestly don't know, because I've never used one, but they look really awful. You can only use those on their devices. And if we do for a second rope the Gear S back into the equation, not only can you only use that on Android devices, but you can only use that on Samsung devices, and you can only use it on a select number of Samsung devices at that. So a wearable with open compatibility is just a really, really big thing, and it's one of the major selling points that Pebble has been leaning on since its inception. Back in, I believe 2012 was when the Kickstarter first kickstarted. Yeah. Some of the other defining features that set the Pebble apart from Android Wear and from Apple's Watch, because of the e-ink screen that the Pebble Time has, it is much, all of the muches and all of the exclamation points much easier to read in daylight. Anybody who has ever used a Kindle to read ebooks, the ease and the comfort that you have with the eyes reading, you get all of that. It's just gorgeous, and it's gorgeous in the light, in the bright light. Always on because of that e-ink screen. Low power consumption because of that e-ink screen. It's touted to have a 7-day battery life, and we'll touch on that in a second. It's touted to have extraordinarily low charging times, even from dead. We'll touch on that in a second. The ecosystem for the applications that you load on the watch is open, so anybody can develop apps for it, and anybody can make it do whatever the heck they want, which is awesome. And for those people who are against the man, it's not a Google or an Apple product. Then there's also the fact that the price point on a brand new Pebble Time is still $200, which is an extraordinarily reasonable price point, considering how expensive some of the variants of, say, Apple's Watch are. I'm looking at you, the version of the watch that's gold-plated and retails for something retarded like $10,000. There's just no call for that at all. Some of the things that are absolutely fantastic, having used the Pebble Time for 5 days now, the fact that the watch bands are interchangeable on this device are just really, really wonderful. I can't express that enough. I have great big old fat wrists, and earlier on, I touched on this in my unboxing video, but earlier on, when I was wearing a different timepiece, my lovely wife bought me a cuff and a different watch band that I wore, and those were just really, really easily assimilated into my Pebble Time, simply because of the standard 22-23 millimeter watch bands fit on these things, and the pins that it comes with are those really, really nice, easily removable pins, which if you've never seen these, I don't know whether or not I'm going to be able to show you guys these, but we're going to... Okay, let's find that camera. Now, I don't know, you can see, let's get that off of my shiny head. See that little notch up there at the top on what will be the left-hand side of the screen? You just grab a hold of that with your thumb and pull on it really, really gently, and it compresses the spring inside of there, and you can just pull the pin out and redo the watch bands, and it's absolutely fantastic. I don't know who came up with that, but he's probably richer than I am right now. Very, very, very nice feature, being able to switch those in and out. Another really great thing about this device that I absolutely like is there is a hook for the Google Now APN inside of it, and a microphone that's at the bottom of the watch face, so that when you reply to text messages, you can do it verbally now using the power of the Google Now system. That just means you can reply verbally to your text messages. Now, there is a 6-second buffer on that, and so that means that you can't really pontificate, but 6 seconds is more than enough to pass most features along. And because it hooks into the Google Now APN, the text recognition is really robust, and you don't have to load any additional kit onto the phone in order to make it work, and so that's always just absolutely fantastic. The magnetic charging port on the back of the phone is back from the original Pebble, and I am delighted to report that it is quite a bit stronger than it was on the original Pebble time. There were a lot of complaints with the design of the original Pebble that it was really easy to pull it off of the Pebble, and that it didn't always seat right, and so you didn't know whether or not your device was charging or if it wasn't. Much more robust on this new one. The device touts 7 days of up to 7 days of battery life. I lit mine up Monday evening, and was at 10% battery late last night, which is a Saturday evening, when I finally put it back on the charger again. I ran my device with the backlight on at a 5-second duration at the blinding luminance level. That's really stupid. And I've got my work email synced up to this thing. I've got text messages and Google Hangout chats and Facebook notifications and calendar notification crap going off all the time. So I was not gentle on this watch at all. Excuse me. That I got 5 days worth of battery life out of this thing, using it whenever the hell I wanted. Was extraordinarily impressive. And for the people that really don't want to take their watch off, or that really don't want to have to charge it, I can honestly say, as advertised, for the casual user, yeah, you'll get your 7 days worth of battery life out of this thing, full stop. I'm extraordinarily confident of that. The other thing that it really touts in the advertisements is that the battery charges from stone dead in an hour. Yes, it does. I might even go out on a limb and say that it charges even quicker than that. From 10% last night, I let it wait probably 40-45 minutes, and when I went over to look at it, the battery was already at 100%. So I, again, extraordinarily impressed with that. The haptic motor, the vibrator, if you will, on the inside of these things that tells you that you've gotten a notification. I've used several different wearable devices from several different manufacturers, and not only is the vibrator inside of this watch, I'm going to say vibrator like 6 or 7 times because I'm a juvenile, not only is the vibrator inside of this watch much stronger than any of the other brands and their products out there, but you can actually set the intensity of said vibrator, there it is again, inside of the menus for the watch, which I thought was a nice touch, maybe a little bit superfluous, but a nice touch. Doubly impressive about said vibrator is when I have my watch band on this thing, typically the Pebble just rests right against the skin of the user, but when I've got my watch band on this thing, I have this great big beefy thick leather cuff along with, I don't know if you can see here on the bottom, those 2 strips of Kevlar watch band, all of that separating the watch from my skin, and I still feel this very, very well whenever it goes off. So kudos to the folks over at Pebble Time for actually going the distance and making sure that you don't miss notifications. It's also good because the vibrator inside of this is so strong, you can use it as a reliable silent alarm. And there are apps out on the Pebble App Store for the whole gentle waking thing, so that it starts the vibrations very lightly and then escalates upwards from there. So again, very, very happy with how robust that feature is. The hardware on the hardware on the wristband that comes with it is very, very good. I talked about it a little bit in my unboxing video. The buttons that are on the sides of the watch, again, you've got 1 button over here, which is your back button, and 3 buttons along the side. Go backwards on the calendar, select item, go forwards on the calendar. The hardware feels very robust, very strong, not wobbly at all. There's a good firm click You can feel from a tactile standpoint when you've actually made your selection. Very, very good from a hardware standpoint. The whole thing just feels really well built and looks really well built, while also being extraordinarily light on your wrist, especially if you get an aftermarket watch band like that lightweight Kevlar watch band that my lovely spouse procured for me. Best wife is best. So yeah, not unhappy at all with the hardware construction of the device. Not unhappy at all. Some things that I did kind of have a problem with about this device. The screen. Let's see whether or not I can make you guys see. Okay, that gives you an idea of how much of that watch face is actually viewable screen. Now, when you look at this thing, you think to yourself, wow, there's a great big watch face on that. I'm really, really horrible at this. I swear to God, Mike, I'll learn how to use your camera one of these days. It looks like the watch face on this is really, really big, right up until you light it up and realize that there's a second bezel around the actual display. That's not a whole lot of real estate for the kind of notifications that are being passed to you. Now, I realize that my eyesight's a little bit worse than the average Joe, but I've asked some other people who don't see nearly as bad as I do, and the general consensus is that everybody's a little bit shocked by how small the screen is. That only becomes more of a problem when you realize that, yes, while the screen on this device is one of those excellent e-ink screens, the pixel density is quite a bit lower than the pixel density that you're going to find on your Kindles or the PPI that you're going to find on other LCD watches like Wear watches and Gear S watches and stuff like that. So smaller screen, lower density. Some of the really, really small text on the screen, and I'm going to segue into that now, but some of the really, really small text on the screen is legitimately difficult to read. The general text on this thing is tiny. The system notifications, the calendar readouts, the notifications by default, tiny, 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 tiny. Much, much too small for a screen of this size and for pixel density of this size. Pebble should be shot for this. It's just a bad implementation. I realize that I don't see as well as other people do, but again, I've talked with other folks who see just fine and who have used other wearables, and they all agree with me across the board. It's just too small. The Pebble forums back this as well. There are lots of people complaining about how small the font on the phone is, and so Pebble released an update in what I believe is software version 3.2 that makes it to where now you can increase the size of the font of your notifications. You just can't increase the size of the font anywhere else on the device. This brings another point about the device and about wearables in general. Really, Jaron? Really? I'll be right back. I return to you now, the turn of the tide. In any event, this does indeed bring another interesting point about the Pebble time into sharp focus. We were just discussing the fact that with the 3.2 software update, and after much griping and ballyhoo in the forums, that you can now increase the font size of your notifications from painfully small to not quite as painfully small. And this does call another stark... this does call another problem into stark relief for both this device and for just notification wearable devices in particular, into stark relief, and that is the now that I have the ability on this Pebble to make the notifications larger, the watch is quite usable for me, and it's quite usable because other than getting notifications, I don't do anything with it. And that is part of the problem, I think, with what wearable devices are turning into. And each device that I have used in the past, be it a Tizen device or an Android Wear device or a Pebble device or whatever, or based on what I've seen off of the Apple Watch, it suffers from this problem as well. The wearables are supposed to serve a specific, quick, light purpose. And people keep trying to throw too many other bits and pieces of functionality into these for my own personal taste. Unfortunately, the Pebble is no exception. And in doing so, it has made a huge portion of its functionality sort of pointless. One of the main point of functionality that this Pebble watch offers is its timeline feature. I'm going to see whether or not I can... Got to turn it back the other way. So when you push the up button, it's your calendar, and you can start scrolling backwards on your calendar because up is back. And you push down, you start scrolling forward on your calendar. Now, that's neat and everything, but I don't care. I don't care. If I want to look at my calendar, that is one of those things where, hey, what are you doing on Saturday? I don't know. Let me check my calendar real quick. That is one of those things where you're going to pull your generic-looking slab of glass and plastic out of your pocket, and you're going to look at your calendar, or you're going to look at something on the wall and go, that calendar over there. Yes, we still hang calendars on the wall in this day and age. That's when you're going to get your device out of your pocket, and you're going to look at it. I excluded the Gear S from the discussion of wearables, even though I keep bringing it back up again. I excluded it from that because the Gear S does so much stuff. It's not a wearable; it's a phone that sits on your wrist. And so many of the other wearables are really encroaching on that territory, and are kind of defeating the purpose of what a good wearable should be. It should be lightweight. It should just serve you bits and pieces of information and let you decide whether or not you want to deal with them now or deal with them later. The calendar is a perfect example of that. If I have to check my calendar, I'm going to go get my phone out. And because of that, I don't want a wearable that has a huge portion of its functionality wrapped up in something that I'm never going to use on the watch anyway. I never scroll through, what am I doing tomorrow? No, I never do that. I get my phone out, or I open up a tab on my computer and go look at my Google Calendar or whatever. Gmail represent. I never look at my watch. I didn't do that when I was wearing a Gear S. I didn't do that when I was using Android Wear. I don't do that now with my Pebble watch. I don't look at my calendar on the watch. It's just not one of those things that I do. And the calendar is not the only thing that I have that problem with. And that really outlines one of the failings, not just of Pebble, but of devices like this in general. Make me a nice, lightweight, quiet, streamlined, easy to read notification platform that lets me know that something has happened, gives me an at a glance, and lets me decide whether or not I want to stop what I'm doing and go and delve deeper into the actual data point that's come in on my cellular device. Anything else beyond that? No. And knowing that, I have a sliver of hope for Pebble in terms of becoming a better device, because Pebble is so open source and because there are so many very, very intelligent people working on it. Someone somewhere could develop a system mod for this notification platform and turn it into just that. Do I think it's probably elect to happen? No, probably not. But somebody could, and so I'm holding out for that. I really, really am. One of the other things that I have a problem with on this watch is because it's e-ink. While the screen is absolutely fantastic to read in bright light, even in modest light, the screen is difficult to read. And in low light, you just flat out cannot read it, and you've got to turn the light on, which exposes yet another problem. The backlight on this watch is breathtakingly bad in terms of contrast. When you are looking at this watch in normal light, there's pretty decent contrast between the blacks of the e-ink and the things that aren't black. As soon as you turn that black light on, everything washes out, and it just looks bad. The contrast is up so high on it that there's so much washout in what you're looking at, and the colors fade and become less poppy, and at that point it's like, okay, now why do I care that I've got a color timepiece. Just give me a black and white timepiece, because all I want is text. You know, if you want to have a colored watch face, whatever, fine. It wants to look cutesy. I don't know. The color's a pointless thing, and the contrast with the backline on it is just absolutely, just breathtakingly bad. It really, really is. One of the other things that I have a problem with is that there is no clear, easy to use, easy to recognize battery indicator on this thing. In order to get to the battery indicator, you've got to get into the settings menu, where you will see here. I'll even pull this up here. That right there, that little green spot, that's your battery indicator. See if I can turn that back on there for you. That's your battery indicator. You can't see it, and neither can I. There are apps out there that are in the Pebble marketplace, or whatever the hell they're calling it, that give you a better indication of what your battery life should be. Nobody should have to write a third-party application for a mission-critical function like this on a watch. It's just sloppy. The buttons on the side of the watch, I like the hardware for, but I'm going to go ahead and put this thing on now to illustrate a point. If I want to scroll up on the watch, I can do so like this. But if I want to scroll down, it's easier for me to shift my grip and do it like this. It's not always the most... If I bring this in front of my face like I need to do in order to read it, it's much, much more comfortable to have my hand up here to scroll down, because I've got leverage on the watch. But if I want to scroll up, I need to switch my grip like that. It's cumbersome. It's very, very cumbersome. The other thing, and it's not necessarily a flaw as it is just a questionable implementation, there's cutesy little animations all over the place on this device, and give me a minute, I'll go ahead and take it back off my wrist again and show it to you. The calendar is an excellent way to illustrate this. This is so bad. So I'm going to scroll forward to the sunrise today. It's a little sunrise. See that? It's a little sunrise again. That's cute. It really, really is. But again, it undermines one of the basic functionalities that smartwatches should have, which is they should be fast. I don't give a rip about a cutesy little animation about sunshine. Yes, it makes it new and kind of quirky, but I don't. That's you have gotten so far away from the basic functionality of what a good wearable device should be, and you haven't brought me anything for it. This is not a child's toy. It's a $200 tool. So I have kind of an issue with that. I've been kind of ripping on the watch here for the last several minutes, and this segment actually stands to be one of the longest ones that I've ever thrown up. Would I now go out and buy a Pebble? If battery life wasn't an issue for me, if I didn't really care about battery life, if I didn't mind charging it, and if I didn't care about durability, no, I would probably not buy one of these watches. But I do jump back and forth between Android and iOS devices quite a bit with the work that I do, so the Pebble is really, really good for that. The other thing, I didn't really touch on this before, I did talk about it a little bit in the unboxing, but there is Corningware Gorilla Glass 3 on the front of this thing, and it is legitimately waterproof. You can take it into pools and, into wherever underwater, and the watch will not break on you. It's physically, it's more robust, and I'm a little bit of a putz and a dinosaur when I move around, so I'm glad that I've got a more robust timepiece on my hand. Most of the Android Wear timepieces that I've ever had the opportunity to deal with have been fragile, and were absolutely not very waterproof. As a matter of fact, some of them are legendarily not waterproof. Aaron Reiser, I'm looking at you. So in that respect, I love the battery life on this thing. I love the durability of it. I love the fact that it's waterproof. I love that I can beat it up a little bit and it's not such a problem. I love that I can put new watch bands on it, and I love the fact that I never ever miss a notification on this thing. Would I like a few? Would I like a few of the features made differently? Yes, I absolutely would. But as it stands right now, When I get notifications, I can see them clearly-ish and cleanly-ish. I know whether or not I need to go back and look at my phone. I never miss them. It's not ugly, and I can put new watch bands on it, and I don't have to charge the battery once every day because of all those things. Yeah. You know what? If you're tired of Android Wear and you want something different and everything that I've talked about appeals to you, yeah, give it a shot. It's a good product. It's just not as good as it could be. So that's supposed to have been a dramatic stop there, and it's way less dramatic when I miss the stop button on the computer.